Howdy, y'all. I'm Lady.
And I'm Sheriff Alana.
And this right here is Spookery.
Oh my god, I love it.
You darn tootin'.
You're darn tootin'. Are you yeehaws ready for this tootin' episode?
I hope they are, because, man, I've been working on this episode for so long, and it's finally here, and it's finally time to record, and I can just tell you my story.
And I am here for it, ma'am. I have been waiting eagerly to listen to this, and you guys are going to have to endure a lot of my accent this time, so I am sorry. But yeah, that's a Sheriff Alana for you.
I think everyone who looks at the title of this episode will know that there's going to be a lot of bad Southern accents, and I refuse to apologize for that.
Yeah.
So
it is
buckle up, buckaroos.
It enhances. It puts you in the Texas spirit.
Yeah. So welcome everyone to Theft and Fraud. This is going to be our very first 3-part episode. And I was a fool for doing it, but I'm very proud of myself for doing it, and I hope you guys enjoy it, because it's a lot. Alana doesn't know what the topic is. You guys have the advantage that you can see the title. I will tell Alana in just a second, but I'm going to start off with my handy-dandy trigger warnings, because there's a lot that happens very quickly. So for this particular episode, trigger warnings are going to be minor sexual assault and self-mutilation. So I will flag those when they happen. So just prepare yourselves. Yeah. Alana, how are we feeling? Are we ready to get into the Texas spirit?
I'm feeling it. I am large and in charge right now. I am ready for this story, ma'am.
All right. So for some backstory, everyone, Alana and I never know the titles of each other's stories until we get into the recording. That way it stops us from looking up each other's cases, because I know I will do that. If Alana ever gave me any sort of window, I would be like, I need to know.
Yeah, right?
And then that just takes out the fun and surprise and the joy. So Alana doesn't know what we're getting into yet, but I have a sneaky little intro to read for her to kind of maybe give her a hint and then completely drop the bomb on her. What we're talking about.
I'm in suspense. Tell me.
I will. And I picked this case because it had because I was like, I know this one, but I don't know this one. Kind of like with Ouija boards. So I was like, okay, I'm in that frame of mind. And then I read like the first 3 pages of what happened, and I was like, wait a second, I know this. This is information from my Erdington murder episode.
Wait, what?
So it was.
This ties to Erdington?
There are connections. Kind of. There are some weird connections. It's not a full tie. They're not confirmed to be linked, but there are some fun little bits in there. So you'll know when you hear them.
All right.
You'll know them when you hear them.
That's a surprise. I was not expecting that. I'm like, all right, I know we're doing a heist. I know we're doing our Southern accents, but I had no idea that this would be taking us back to episode 3. Yeah.
Yes, episode 3. No, and I'm gonna flat out say this right now. You know this case.
Oh.
You do. I know. You're looking at the title that I've put in, and I'm like, you know this case. I've hidden it from you very well. But I think much like I was when I started this, you know this case, but you don't know this case.
Okay.
Like, you'll hear the name and you'll be like, oh shit. But I can guarantee you that you don't know everything that happened. So, allow me to read my handy little intro that I prepared for you this many days
ago.
of preparing this, many moons ago. All right. It's May 23rd, 1934. Bienville Parish, Louisiana. It's early morning, about 9. 6 men lie in wait, concealed in bushes just out of sight of the main road. They've got a tip. The payout of a lifetime is en route. 6 men are kind of brought together by circumstance. They don't really know each other. They've kind of been grouped together, and they're starting to get a little bit antsy. They've been waiting here for a day. But then they see it. Off in the distance, further down the rural Louisiana road, a car is heading straight towards them. It's a stolen 1934 Ford V8 Deluxe sedan, racing down the road to keep an early morning appointment. The drivers are none the wiser to the 6 men, lying awake just a ways down the road. And the occupants? They're just 2 young outlaws called Bonnie and Clyde.
What? What? Are you serious? What? We're gonna do Bonnie and Clyde today?
We're doing motherfucking Bonnie and Clyde!
That's not what I was expecting at all!
No, but you know it. You know Bonnie and Clyde, but I bet you don't know Bonnie and Clyde.
I know nothing. I know just their names. That is the extent of what I know.
And that is what I was. I was like, I know of Bonnie and Clyde. I know that they were Western outlaws. They were desperados. They were, robbing banks and stealing the hearts of the people. But I had no idea what they did. I don't know what banks they robbed. I don't know what they did. I don't know who they were, who they ran with, like what happened.
Yeah, same.
And so I think it was after episode 3 you told me like, oh, like a heist is a really good way to go with theft and fraud. And I was like, yeah, like a heist movie.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I was looking through famous heist movies, and I saw the 1967 Bonnie and Clyde movie. And I was like, oh, well, if they can sum up everything that happened in Bonnie and Clyde in one movie, 100% I can do it in like 2 parts.
Haha, you were wrong.
I was so wrong. I'm even looking at my notes now, and I'm like, maybe I should make this a 4-parter. But no. We're committing to the 3-parter.
We'll do it.
And we'll just skim a little bit off the top. But there's so much happened. So much. And I think that is something that I didn't realize, is that this is a 3-year adventure.
What? Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty much a 3-year adventure. It's like 2.5 years, really. But a lot happens. They got up to a lot. And I think that's part of the reason why I was like, wow, there's so much. And because this was the 30s, and this was Texas, this was Oklahoma, this was the Deep South. And there's so many news reports where it like embellishes the truth, or it's just flat out wrong. And so you're just wading through thousands and thousands of newspapers going, they did this. Actually, no, prove that they didn't do this, but they might have done this. Well, actually, it was confirmed that they did this, but not in the way that it was told, like all the way back in the day. And it's like, okay.
Wow.
So I have compiled my 3-part, I guess, mini-series within our series to give you a very, very, very abridged Bonnie and Clyde history. It's very abridged. There are smaller, minor ones that I cut out that I didn't think were important. If you want to know more about Bonnie and Clyde, if you want to, try and figure out maybe pieces that I couldn't figure out, all of my sources will be down below. But just going into this, everybody know that this is a very, very abridged. It's abridged. I cut out as much as I could to make it a 3-parter, but it's still it's a complete abridged series.
I am so excited for this. This was not what I expected at all, but boy, am I ready.
I tried so hard. I wanted to tell you as soon as I picked it, and as soon as I realized that I made a fool of myself. I wanted to be like, hey, just so you know, we're doing this, but I didn't. And I was like, because it'll be so satisfying with you not knowing what we're getting into.
Oh man, yeah, I'm glad you kept me in the dark, because I don't think I would have been able to keep my curiosity at bay, like you said. I think I would have ended up Googling some just to have a little edge of knowledge. Like, oh yeah, I knew that. No, that's...
I know that they did this, but...
No, I know nothing. I am in the complete dark. You bamboozled me already. I am so ready for this, man. Take me on this 3-year-long adventure. Let's go!
I will take you on this adventure, but first, some context.
Yes, context.
Because I think... an important thing to know is I'm a new American. I'm an American that I've earned my American title, and so I don't know a lot about, I guess, common American history, because I didn't grow up with it. So, I was reading about Bonnie and Clyde, and they were referencing a lot of things, and I'm just like, I know of it, but I don't know about this. So I have a little bit of context for you, just to kind of give you a mentality of what the time period was like for, if you're a listener like me who doesn't know much about American history. I kind of just did a really quick 30s summed up. So, let's start off with the Great Depression, because this was happening at the time.
Okay.
It was fucking miserable.
Yeah.
Great Depression was a 10-year period of history, pretty much spans the entire 30s, and I don't think they really truly recovered until the 40s. And of course, then the war hit. So, going back, the 20s was considered like the wealthiest time in American history. And like everyone was investing in stocks, they were partying it up, it was all, all the money was going to Wall Street. Economy was booming, there was high spending, and investing was super, super high. Unfortunately, what was not on the super high and the up and up, it was employment. So production and local work was on the decline, so people were doing more that they were investing in, but they weren't producing. So it was a lot of product being sold, but there was not a lot of product to be sold.
Okay.
So, and then of course, then stock prices were listed higher than the actual value. And it was just this constant, that's up hike and up hike and up hike. At this time as well, wages were also at a super time low. So there was a lot of debt. People were taking out loans to invest in the stock market, knowing that they were going to hit it big at some point. And it was just like it was money that they didn't have.
Yeah.
So around this time as well, the Dust Bowl kicked up. So if you're like me, I didn't know what the Dust Bowl was either. It was this massive fucking drought. And it was also a combination of farmers. They were almost like overplanting the ground. Like agriculture was like, they were basically depleting the ground of like all of its nutrient, and they destroyed a bunch of farmland. It also created a huge level of dust storms and just crumbled soil in the air. So like basically there were just sandstorms just all over the country. I think it hit all the way up to New York.
Wow.
But because of that, food prices were now starting to rise. And that also just caused the loans to rise as well, because people were like, okay, well, now I'm no longer just investing. I need to feed my family.
Yeah.
So in 1929, they hit a mild recession. And so consumers were like, ooh, we should stop spending. And then there was a complete fucking flip. So now, instead of not having a lot of product, there's a stockpile of product that they can't sell because people can't afford them. So now there's a stockpile of goods that aren't being bought, and so now there's overproduction. So we have too many workers making too many things, and we can't sell them. So stock prices don't show that. They keep rising. They keep like, everything's gonna be fine, guys. Everything's gonna be fine. And then October 24th, 1929, everything crashed. It all just went boosh. So is it 12.9 million overpriced shares were sold and traded that day, and that day is now known as Black Thursday. 5 days later, 16 million more shares were traded, and pretty much it was just panic. People were, trying to get their money back any way they could, but everything just tanked, so there was just nothing. And so the people who had invested, and they'd invested in taking these loans out for these stocks, they were annihilated. There was no money. They were in debt. They were in extreme debt. They had nothing.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Consumer spending and investment tanked. Yeah, it was a rough time. So industrial output and employment plummeted. I think it was, I read somewhere that in 1933, over 15 million Americans were unemployed. So that's an important number to remember. In 1933, 15 million Americans were unemployed.
Wow. That is just a huge number.
Yeah. And here's another really important piece of information. Half of all banks failed.
Half? 50%?
Half of all banks. Now remember, Bonnie and Clyde are known as bank robbers. What banks?
What, yeah, where are these banks? Whose money? What?
Yeah, so we'll get into that.
Oh, gosh.
But those are just important pieces of information, because that 1933 was like heyday of Bonnie and Clyde. So pretty much now at that point, companies were laying off employees because one, they had too much product they couldn't sell. They couldn't afford to pay workers, so they just lay people off. So that kind of added to the unemployment. Then suddenly people couldn't afford, so they couldn't buy, so they couldn't make products. It was a horrible, horrible circle.
Yeah.
And if you were lucky enough to keep your job, if you were considered an essential worker, you weren't really paid anything. Wages were non-existent. You were like, it was pennies what you were paid.
Yeah.
And at that time, people had like huge families because the 20s had been such a populous era. So pretty much we're in the era of foreclosures, repossessions, and this was felt worldwide. America tanking, it affected all of their trade partners. So, just a really fucking miserable time period.
Yeah.
Yeah, international trade fell by 50%. The dollar tanked. Just fucking grim. And it also had a lot of effect on the generation that grew up in the 20s. So young kids who were born beginning of the 20s who were promised this life of luxury, like, oh, we're going to make it big. Like, don't worry, we're investing everything in the stock market. Everything's going to be fine. And then 1929 hit, and it all fell apart. And these kids are just entering adulthood.
Yeah.
and they're just looking at this mess going, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do?
So reminiscent of the era that we were in almost.
Yeah, history does tend to repeat itself. And so what my petition is that we become the new Bonnie and Clyde.
I'm sold. You say less. The podcast has ended. We have a new direction.
Yeah, I think becoming desperado outlaws, great fun. Or maybe not. Maybe we'll see what the story was.
Yeah, I guess let's see how this turns out for them. I'm holding back. Like, we got 3 years of adventuring to get through before I really make up my mind on that. So.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Also at this time was prohibition. So people, basically, alcohol not legal no more. Don't drink. Which, on top of being miserable all the time, not great. Where you're taking the one piece of joy a lot of these people have.
Yeah.
That was passed in January 29, 1999. It was a ban on making and selling alcohol. So pretty much don't do it.
Yeah.
This was actually an effect of the temperance movement, which I think was a religious movement. Once again, I don't look much of this up. I don't know much about it. But pretty much it was just be a good Christian. Don't drink that much. Don't sin. Don't embrace your vices. Be a good Christian. You'll go to heaven. So kind of prohibition went hand in hand with that. It was a fucking disaster.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. It didn't stop people from making or consuming alcohol. It just drove up crime and illegal alcohol smuggling because there was money to be made in it.
Yep.
And, it was kind of... We talked about it in Ouija boards where, when someone tells you not to do something, the want to do it kind of increases a little bit. Where it's like, ooh, now I'm being naughty.
Yeah.
Now people don't want me to do this. So that was really what prohibition was, where they were the government, who was really corrupt at the time, was just saying, hey, don't do this. And basically these poor, starving people were just like, well, fuck you. I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, they said, fuck
but
that.
I'm going to do it.
They took their alcohol, they took their Ouija boards, and they went home.
Yeah. Pretty much, Ouija boards were, rampant at this time, so it's all connected. Perfect. So, let's get into it. Let's talk about Bonnie. Okay, so Bonnie Elizabeth Parker was born October 1st, 1910 in Rowena, Texas.
In Texas.
To Emma and Charles Parker. And I'm like, shoot dang. She was the middle child with an older brother, Hubert Parker, and a younger sister, Billie Jean Parker.
Billie Jean. Bonnie and Billie Jean.
Bonnie and Billie Jean.
Now you're just two peas in a pod.
I'm sure. I think they had a really good relationship. I think Billie Jean visited Bonnie when they were out on the run. It was a time. So on December 31st, 1914, when Bonnie was just 4 years old, her father passed away.
Oh.
And I could not find the cause. I don't know why he passed. I don't know what happened, if it was old age or illness.
Gotcha.
Couldn't find anything. Her mother took up work as a seamstress, moved the whole family in with Bonnie's grandparents in a rough area of Dallas known as Cement City. It was not a great place.
Oh.
It was kind of like the slums of Dallas. It was like, if you're poor, you live here. Dallas at the time was also a bit of a weird city where it was split into Dallas and West Dallas. So West Dallas was that was where the blue collars went. They were the workers. They did the factory. They were the people being paid peanuts. And then Dallas was run by the white collar. It was all businessmen and trying to build up grades. So it was there's a huge dichotomy there.
Yeah, you don't usually see it like that. You said, where one town is just, this is where the rich people are, and then the poorsies you go over there. Please get out.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they even named part of Dallas West Dallas to distinguish it separately from regular Dallas, I think that says a lot.
They're this is better Dallas. This is worse Dallas.
Yeah. We got Dallas and good Dallas.
Wow.
Yeah. Good times. So Bonnie and her family moved to Cement City. This is where Bonnie spent most of her childhood. She was described as a caring model student who aspired to be a poet.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's a poet and she didn't even know it.
Yeah. It was also here that Bonnie met the love of her life. The first one.
Oh, okay.
So when Bonnie was attending Eagle Ford School in Dallas, she crossed paths with a man named Roy Thornton.
Sounds romantic.
Do you remember that last name, though? Thornton? Does that ring a bell?
Thornton? Is that the second case or the first one?
That's both of them. That was the suspect in both of the Erdington cases.
I was I can't recall which one that was from, because it just sounded like you said so. Wow, okay. All
yeah,
right.
Thornton. She met a man named Thornton. Hello.
Hello, Thorntons. Welcome back.
Roy Thornton, hello. He was 2 years her senior. He was also a bit of a bad boy. And he already had a long string of misdemeanors, as one does. So the romance got pretty serious pretty quickly, and the two were married on September 25th, 1926, when Bonnie was 15 and Thornton was 17.
Oh my gosh, young kids and their romance.
This was Texas in the 20s.
Yeah.
They were like, we're going to go on the up and up, Bonnie. Life is good. We're in the 20s. It's the roaring 20s. We're having a grand old time. We're going to make it big, baby. And she was like, yep.
Yeah, yep.
I am 15.
Sure oh, man. Bonnie.
Bonnie. Yeah, she dropped out of school shortly after that.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
No. But things, alas, did not go smoothly for the marriage. And true to his bad boy nature, there was a plethora of reporting saying that young Roy was unfaithful.
Oh, no, not Roy.
Yeah.
Not Thornton.
Not Thornton, surely not.
Oh, Jesus.
He apparently, he would go out for days on end and just leave Bonnie with, no messages. She would just disappear and then come back a couple days later and she'd be like, what happened? And he's like, what?
What do you mean? I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also speculated in some of the sources that he was also abusive to Bonnie.
Oh.
So
maybe she didn't mind those. She's like, yeah, he just leaves for a few days. It's
maybe.
fine.
But it's also it's your first, you're married to this person. It's your very serious relationship. It was fast. It was hot and heavy. And, she's got her whole hopes up, this is the man of my dreams. He's perfect. And then it suddenly immediately became apparent that he wasn't.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, poor Bonnie.
Yeah. So the two broke up and got back together a couple of times. But the two split for a third and final time on December 27th, 1927. Roy tried several times to reunite with Bonnie, but in 1929 he was incarcerated, and that was that.
Well, bye, Roy.
Yeah, that was the last time the two ever saw each other.
Well, probably for the best.
Yes. But, noted, they never got a divorce.
Oh, so okay.
Never. So Bonnie was married the whole way through this. And she always wore the wedding ring that Roy gave her.
Did she take his last name? Was she Bonnie Thornton?
No, she was always Bonnie Parker.
Okay.
She was always Bonnie Parker.
She remained independent.
Yeah, she took. Well, I think that was maybe being 15. She's like, I don't know if I want to get rid of my last name, or maybe she did and immediately switched it back. It wasn't said, but she, through her entire escapades as a desperado, she was Bonnie Parker.
Heck yeah.
She also, she wore the wedding ring that Roy gave her until the day she died.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think
she still had a piece of him in her heart throughout the entire thing.
I think so. I think you don't forget your first love, and I think that hit Bonnie hard. And Clyde was an unusual relationship, as we'll find out very soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at any rate, her husband gone, suddenly in prison. Bonnie's like, well, great. So she moved back in with her mother, and she began working at a waitress in Dallas.
Wow.
She's reported to have worked at several cafes at the time, which kind of makes sense, especially when, it's a single mom, you've got 3 kids, you're helping out your family in any way you can. The 2 notable ones that I found was Marco's Cafe and Hartgrave's Cafe in Dallas. I have no idea if they're still standing, but if they are, those are the ones you're looking for.
We're going to make a trip one day.
Yeah. I've always wanted to go to I almost said I always wanted to go to Daxus, but that's not what it was. I wanted to go to Texas. Daxus Talus.
We're coming.
Not correct. Oh dear. So, notable side note here. This is another little piece of information to remember. One of the regulars at the cafe that she worked at was a postal worker named Ted Hinton. He's going to be real important later, so remember the name. Ted Hinton.
Ted Hinton. That's a hint for later, guys. Remember Ted Hinton.
That Ted Hinton. He'll probably come back in part 3. So, just hold on to that.
Gotcha.
Put it in your head. All right, so it was January 5th, 1930, when things began to take a turn for Bonnie. So she was staying at a friend's home that had many names according to lots of different sources, but the one that was kind of agreed upon was Clarence Clay. So Bonnie was kind of between jobs at this point. I guess the cafe work wasn't really doing it for her. And this friend broke her arm. So Bonnie was like, no worries, I'm going to take care of you. While I get back on my feet, we'll sort this out. Well, Bonnie was making hot chocolate in the kitchen. A young man dropped by. at this late hour. And Bonnie was like, whoa, who that?
Yeah, who's visiting at this late hour?
Who is that fine piece of ass just walking through my friend's kitchen?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was love at first sight. So the young man's name was Clyde Barrow.
Wow, like Thornton who?
And he too was like, whoa. Who's that?
I love that. So they both felt it. An instant connection.
Yeah, it was basically, from what I could see, it was a bolt of lightning. They both crossed paths just... It was fate, you know. They happened to meet in this one particular friend's home, and they were just like, "That's the one."
Wow, I'm here for it. I ship it.
They were really, like, you say what you will about Bonnie and Clyde. I think they were a really good couple, and they listened to each other for the most part, as much as one can in the 1930s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about Clyde. Let's get into his backstory.
Yeah, tell me about this fine gentleman.
Clyde Chestnut Champion Barrow.
I need to know the name, where this nickname came from, the origins.
Chestnut was his legally given middle name, and Champion was, I think, his cover-up, so...
What? Was his cover-up?
Yeah, he was like, don't call me Clyde Chestnut Barrow, call me Clyde Champion Barrow, and I will call him both.
I love it. I thought that he was involved in a chestnut championship of some sort, and he was the winner, and that was his nickname, so forth.
You know, my headcanon is it was the only thing that they had to eat, and it was like, well, I'm going to name you after my favorite food. The only thing I have. Chestnuts.
And there's your sister Peanuts. Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, the 1920s were great.
You know, Texas. Yeah, so Clyde Chestnut Barrow was born March 24th, 1909 in Tellico, Texas. I'm also going to stress right now, we're going to get into some fun Texas names. I am alphabetically challenged and not from America. I don't know how to pronounce some of these. They're going to be wrong, as Alana has witnessed recently. Trying to pronounce Arizona cities. So if I mispronounce, I'm really sorry. It's just I really don't know how to say them. I took a guess. I looked them up. I heard pronunciations. We do what we can.
As long as there's no Peoria, we are good.
Peoria.
Peoria.
Oh, dear. So, Clyde.
Clyde, yes, back to Clyde.
Back to Clyde. He was the fifth of 7 children.
Wow. All right.
Too many, send one back.
That's a lot of kids.
And especially, like, I mean, they don't know. They're going into the 20s. They're being promised this future. I'm like, they're like, the more kids we have, like, the better we'll be. But, man, 7 children, especially when the Depression hit. Family was dirt poor. And I mean dirt poor. Like, they were poorer than poor.
They couldn't afford good names. His middle name was Chestnut.
Yeah. His parents, Henry Barrow and Hughie Walker, owned a farm in Tellico, but due to the Dust Bowl and the huge drought that, you know, was happening, the farm failed. Like I said, they were dirt poor.
Yeah.
So they packed up the whole lot and moved to West Dallas.
Wow. All right.
They were so poor that they didn't have a home. They lived underneath their wagon.
Oh.
Until they scrounged up enough money and materials to build a shelter. And they were so poor they were living in it was basically a tent farm. It was almost like a trailer park, but instead of trailers it was tents.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford a tent, so they lived under the wagon that brought them there until I think that his father was a scrap like salvager, so he would just go out into Dallas and just find junk essentially to like pawn it off.
Yeah.
And so anything that was like remotely usable he used to help build a shelter, and anything else he just sold for pennies just to afford a tent.
Wow.
Poor family.
Wow.
Yeah. Clyde was described as a small and unassuming boy.
Okay.
And he had dreams of becoming a musician.
Wow. So we got a poet and a musician.
A poet and musician. I feel like I'm like that works. You know, she's the lyricist. He's making the music.
Yeah.
He also knew how to play guitar and the saxophone. So like, he was in it. He was also a very sickly boy, and in some of the reports, he had either malaria or yellow fever as a kid. So poor family. He just wants to be a musician, and he's just suffered through his entire childhood.
I mean, I'm sure living under a little tractor is not good for your health.
No, they didn't even have tractors. This was like a wooden wagon.
Oh, well, yeah, the wagon. Oh, gosh.
There was no vehicles to be had.
Man. Oh, poor little Clyde.
Yeah. Feel bad for baby Clyde.
Yeah.
So, Clyde also had dreams of joining the Navy. But due to his childhood sicknesses, and his very small stature, he was only 5'5" when he was fully grown.
Wow.
So, yes.
That's pretty short.
Well, and especially nowadays, we're used to everyone being like near the 6 foot marker. Yeah, he was very frail, and I think partly was because he was so ill for his childhood.
Yeah,
and it was just a bit of a stunted growth.
I'm sure,
and I'm sure he was also malnourished. Like they're not eating well.
Yeah,
they're eating the dirt off of like the scraps of whatever they could find. Essentially, they're eating chestnuts.
Oh, poor little chestnut Clyde.
Poor little chestnut Clyde. So, yeah. So he dreamed of going to the Navy, but because of his sickness and his stature, he was rejected. He didn't take the rejection well, as he had already tattooed USN on his left arm.
Oh, well, that's a bit premature there, Clyde, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, this is also, like, the time where, like, that was, like, the thing to do, as a young man. You went off and joined the Army, joined the Navy, joined the Marines, whatever you needed to do, because one, it was a stable source of income, but they're desperate. The Army is pretty much like, we need people.
So for them to turn you away,
they took one look at Clyde and he was like, sorry buddy, you're just not cut out for the hard life. Yeah. Speaking of tattoos on his arm, though, he also had a series of ex-girlfriend names tattooed on his arm as he grew up.
Okay.
So Bonnie's name was never one of them.
Probably for the better, but still having to stare at that list is also...
I know. I'm like, that's quite funny, but like, don't feel too bad, because Bonnie also had Roy's name tattooed on her thigh, so I'm sure both of them thought it was pretty funny. They were like, oh, love. So, needless to say, Clyde was feeling a little lost.
Yeah.
And he was looking for something to do. So, when he was approached by his older brother, Buck Barrow, didn't take much to push him into the world of crime. He was like, well, Navy don't want me, but my brother wants to teach me the thing or two about stealing chickens.
And stealing chickens, that's a good first endeavor.
That was a thing to do. It was a profitable thing to do. If you stole chickens, because one, you either could sell the chickens as fighting chickens in gambling, or you stole dinner.
Yeah, either it's a win-win situation right there.
Yeah, like as long as you don't get caught, that's a win.
Yeah.
And so they got their dabbling.
And how you gonna prove this is your chicken? I don't see your name on this chicken.
Yeah, I was like, this is just a wild chicken. It's
this is my chicken. I found it. It's my chicken.
So they were stealing chickens. Aside from stealing chickens with his older brother, a lot of his early crimes were very, very, very petty theft. And I'm talking like pickpocketing and like, I'm gonna sneak into this house and just take this tiny little thing.
Okay.
And he also helped his older brother switch license plates. So that was kind of like the big thing with like car theft later on, was switching license plates just to like, it's not your car, it's not got the same license plate, it's my car.
Yeah, was this before VIN numbers and things like that?
Yeah, it was all very minor crime, but it was like, it's not good, but it was like, it's not terrible. It's not going to get you like in super trouble.
Gotcha.
But it really did escalate into regular car theft. And Clyde's first arrest was in 1926 when he was 17, when he failed to return a rental car.
Wow. So not even anything that he was doing, he just forgot to do something.
Yep. Always return your rentals. Always return them.
I love that. I love that it's something just stupid and petty that ends up getting...
Yeah. It's like, and I'm sure he was also like, what the fuck? Like, yeah. I've been stealing chickens, I've been stealing cars, I've been switching license plates, and I got caught for not returning a rental car.
It's always what you don't think.
No. His second arrest was with his older brother Buck when they were caught red-handed for possession of stolen turkeys.
Oh no, they escalated from chickens to turkeys. They went too far. They should have just kept it at chickens. Turkeys that's big game, literally.
Yeah. Oh, and like, how many people could a turkey feed?
And they make a lot of noise. They're like gobble gobble. Like, people hear that shit.
And they had a car full of them. It was a whole ass pickup truck full of turkeys.
Maybe take one or two, dude. Like,
no,
start small.
I wonder why they got caught, because they could hear the theft for miles.
Oh my god. There's just feathers flying out of the windows. They're like, that's a little suspicious. Sir, do you have a license for all these turkeys?
Yeah, do you have a turkey license, sir?
Oh, man.
It's based in facts.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I can hear all the people who are not listening to the episode anymore.
Yeah, they're like, all right, click, goodbye.
That was one too many. I'm sorry. Oh dear. So over the next 3 years, Clyde did everything from he was cracking safes, he was robbing stores, he was stealing cars. You name it, he probably did it. But it was all like minor theft. They go all very like they were misdemeanors, like if anything.
Gotcha.
But he did have a bit of a reputation now because he was consistent. He was always with his brother. They were always up to no good. So he really struggled to hold down a job during this time because cops kept coming to harass him and arrested him on suspicion of numerous other misdemeanors, because that was just a thing that cops did.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, these are not like... The cops back then, especially in these towns, they weren't trained. They were basically... It was a volunteer police force.
Yeah.
And, like, they were told that the only thing that they would really have to deal with is, like, breaking up, like, fights and, like, maybe find bootleggers. Like, it wasn't a dangerous job.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of just, like, it was something to do. It was like, who's the naughty kid today? Let's go and harass him for a bit and arrest him on suspicion because he might have stolen a chicken, or he might have stolen a car, or he might have changed a license plate. So, you know, Clyde's, of course, he's trying to, you know, on the times that he was trying to make it straight, he was trying to hold a job, and basically these cops were coming up, like, and kidnapping him from his job, going, "You're under arrest for suspicion." And the job was like, "Well, that's not great."
Yeah, we need you here, not in jail, sir.
Yeah, and so they would fire him because, like, he wasn't there to work. And there were 1,000 other employees who were like, "I want to work."
Yeah, sitting right outside waiting for that job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, at one point, Clyde and his older brother, Buck, broke into a home and tried to crack a safe. And they failed. It did not go well. And they were like, "Well, we can't crack the safe here. We don't have a lot of time. So, next best thing, let's just take the safe home. Let's just pick up the safe and just put it in the car."
Good plan, guys.
Well, while they were loading the safe into their stolen car, a patrol car drove by.
Oh, God.
And he was like, "I don't think that's yours." And they were like, "Book it." And they just they ran. So a chase ensued, and Buck ended up shot in both legs.
Oh,
during
no.
this thing. Yeah.
Wow.
And Clyde ended up having to leave his brother behind.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think there was like a kind of an agreement where it's like, if one of us goes down, the other's going to flee, because it's much better to have a man on the outside who's going to help me try and escape, rather than both of us go down and then we're stuck. So I don't think it was like a malicious thing, but it was basically like Clyde had to leave his older brother, who was shot in both legs.
Gosh.
And the kicker of it all, there was only $30 in the safe.
Wow. All of that for $30.
Yeah. A kid got shot in the legs for $30.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. But life began to change for old Clyde Chestnut Barrow, because in January 1930, he met a lovely lady named Bonnie Elizabeth Parker. So, you know, as we said, it was like a bolt of lightning. He was smitten. So, next several weeks, the two were inseparable. You know, Bonnie was always on his arm. They were both, you know, they were, you know, he was kind of like a bad boy, but he was a dapper bad boy. You know, he was dressing a little bit nicer, and he was really respectful to Bonnie. You know, she'd just come out of this really kind of abusive marriage. So she was like, "Dreamboat, this is what I want. I want this, this cheeky outlaw, but he's always got time to respect his lady."
Yeah, absolutely. He's mean to everybody but me. Like,
yeah, it's like I'm taken care of.
Yeah.
And she was in it. She was ride or die at this point. She was like, "This is everything I wanted in a man, and he takes really good care of me. You know, he's respectful, he's clean, he's nice." And then their families liked each other too. They were like, "Oh yeah, I like Bonnie. Oh yeah, I like Clyde. They seem nice."
Wow.
But budding romance was rudely interrupted by police knocking on Clyde's door.
Oh no.
They had a warrant for his arrest for auto theft. Yeah. So Clyde was sent to Waco prison.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. For car theft. But I think there was probably like, "There's like, this is the last straw, Barrow. You've stolen too many cars."
Yeah.
So they
locked him
they
up.
booked him. Yeah, they just, and I don't think his sentence, or I don't think he was sentenced before, you know, he started getting into trouble. So I don't know how long he would have been in prison if he had to wait that one out. But yeah, he was sent off to Waco prison, and Bonnie was like, "What the fuck?
Yeah. Not on my watch.
Where did my boyfriend go?"
Yeah.
So pretty much as soon as Clyde was locked up, his first thought was like, "I need to get out of here."
Yeah.
Like, Bonnie's over there, I'm in here, not a fan of going to prison. It was just a car. No.
Yeah.
But Clyde had a plan. So at this point, Clyde was being held in Waco prison, and he was going to be shipped off to Huntsville prison. And he got kind of buddy-buddy with the inmate in the cell next to him. And this inmate had a spare gun back in his house.
Oh, you just happened to. Okay.
Just casually. He had just a spare gun. He was just lying around.
Yeah, as one does.
As one does. So Bonnie came to visit Clyde in prison, and he's like, babe, can you do me the teensiest of favors? And Bonnie was like, So keep in mind, Bonnie's not in the world of crime yet. You know, she's dating a criminal, but he's like, he's a misdemeanor criminal. And she's only been dating Clyde for a month at this point.
Wow. So this is a real test of like, hey, you like me? You say you really like me? All right. Now's your time.
Yeah, it was pretty much like, Clyde's like, hey, can you go into this stranger's house who you don't know, grab a gun, and come back later and bring me the gun? And she's like, yeah, I'll see you in an hour.
Wow.
She was like, I'm in it. I'm here for the crime life, baby.
She's like, say less. She already had her purse on her shoulder, and she was walking out the door to go get that gun for her man.
Pretty much. And she even, like, she was really clever with how she smuggled it. She smuggled it into prison. So she was like, purse is too obvious. Like, she was a small woman. I think she wasn't even 5 foot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it was small. It's just like, can't really hold it on my person. But, you know what I got? Belts. So she had like a belt on the outside of her dress, but then she put a second belt on the inside of her dress and smuggled the gun through that way.
Wow.
And she'd already been in and out of... She's been visiting this prison frequently because I'm like, she wants to go see Clyde.
Yeah.
And she was very charming. All of my sources said this. Bonnie was a very charming woman. Everyone loved Bonnie. So the guards are very familiar with Bonnie at this point. She's like, oh, little Bonnie, she's adorable. She's fun. She's smart. She's full of life. Of course, the Bonnie's not up to any trouble. She's just dating a bad man.
Yeah.
But he was a misdemeanor guy. So they're like, oh, he just, he fucked up once.
Yeah.
So Bonnie came back with this gun strapped to her second belt, and they were like, yeah, get in there, Bonnie, go on and go see Clyde. It's so crazy that you came twice in one day. And she was like, all right.
Yeah.
That was easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
This crime stuff ain't so hard. No wonder people do it.
Yeah. Like that's how your entry into the crime world is. Like, I was like, oh, okay. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's like a pretty risky move, and it just went that smoothly for her. She's like, yeah, no wonder people are out here just like stealing chickens. Like, this is a cakewalk.
Yeah. She's like, if this is the world of crime, I'm in.
Yeah, I've been out here serving tables, busting my hump for nothing, for peanuts, and he's out here like, what's no, yeah, stealing cars from me, baby.
No, she was in it now, and yeah, Clyde got the gun. So on March 11th, 1930, armed with the gun, Clyde escaped with his cellmates by pulling the old sick prisoner routine. Yeah, so one of them would pretend he's like, oh no, he's unwell, he's got a stomachache, we don't know what's wrong with him, can you come in and like see what's up? And then as soon as the guard was in the cell, they were like, stick him up.
Wow.
So they did a runner.
They did it.
And he escaped for exactly 1 week before he was later found in Ohio because someone recognized the car he was in because it was stolen.
What the heck, guys? Come on.
Yeah, it's like, come on now. Come on, Clyde. Like,
but they made it all the way to Ohio.
Yeah, they made it a ways. But I was like, can you believe, like, Bonnie's like, I helped my man escape, and he just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, right? And that's interesting. Can you just leave me? Yeah. I got you this gun, and you just leave me?
It's like, but our crime spree.
A romantic crime spree that was supposed to be.
Alas, it was not to be. Because, naturally, the justice system was less than impressed with this behavior. They were like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah.
So they sentenced Clyde to 14 years hard labor, and he was transferred to Eastham State Farm, which was affectionately nicknamed the Bloody Ham.
Wow, that does not sound like a fun place to be.
Nope, Clyde even called it the hellhole.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a really awful place. This was a place where guards like frequently abused prisoners, and they also forced other inmates to participate.
Oh.
So it was very like, if you were seen as weak and frail, if you weren't seen as like good enough, you were eaten alive. Jeez. And remember, Clyde is 5'5", and he is sickly and he is scrawny.
Yeah, that's not a place for him. 14 years they sentenced him to?
14 years hard labor. So not just 14 years.
Okay, so how did he didn't spend 14 years there. How did he get out of this?
All right, so let's get into it. Let me tell you more about this place because it was really fucking awful.
Yeah.
So prisoners were often beaten within an inch of their lives by the guards. They were often put in tin boxes and left out in the sun as a form of torture.
Oh, Jesus.
Some were just straight up murdered. And they were like, There was also, at the time, there was a $25 reward for recapturing escaped inmates. So guards would, like, release inmates and then catch them.
Jesus Christ, that is some fucked up shit.
Yeah, and then they would bring them back.
Wow.
But, like, they never, like, made it outside the prison walls. They were, like, caught mid-escaping, stops them, and then punished for a quote-unquote escape.
Yeah. Just like mice in a trap. They just, like, set them up and we're like, there we go.
We're not even at the worst of it right now. There was also a punishment called the bat, which was a greased strip of leather that was used to beat prisoners while other prisoners held them down spread eagle.
Oh my god.
This is like where the worst of the worst criminals go.
Yeah.
Clyde should not have been sent here.
No, that's like... That place shouldn't exist in general. Like, that's just bad.
At this time as well, there was also a massive amount of overpopulation in prison. So they were just constantly capturing these prisoners and then immediately pardoning them. And it was just this constant cycle of just bring the prisoners in, abuse them, release them, catch them again, bring them in, release them, catch them again. It was just this awful... So basically, once you were in the cycle, you could not get out of it.
Jesus. Wow.
Yeah.
That is some morbid stuff.
That is where Clyde was sent. But on the bus to prison... Clyde made a friend.
Aw. Little baby Clyde made a friend.
Baby Clyde made a friend. He met a man named Ralph Fultz, who was 19 at the time. And Fultz was younger than Clyde. I think Clyde was 20 at this point.
Okay.
And pretty much the guards were like, don't talk to Fultz. He's a known prison breaker. Don't associate yourself with Fultz. And Clyde was like, I like this kid.
Yeah, so guess who I'm going to be best friends with?
Yeah, and Clyde was like, I like this kid. He's great. I like our friendship. This is my buddy. Yeah. So Fultz also knew a man named Ray Hamilton, who was a notorious bank robber. And so the three of them kind of became like a little posse.
Okay.
Hamilton actually grew up in the same neighborhood as Clyde when they were children. So I think they were familiar with each other, but they'd never, like, spoken.
Wow.
So they were both familiar, like, in that tent farm of, like, the West Dallas.
Yeah. I'm sure to have any connection at all there would be monumental, so...
Yeah, and I think they just ran with different circles growing up. But I'm sure that they were like, oh yeah, like, I think I know that Hamilton kid. I think Ray's brother was, like, a famous... it was a guy called Floyd Hamilton. I believe he was Pretty Boy Floyd was his nickname. So, like, another, like, famous outlaw.
Yeah.
So, like, it runs in the families.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Fultz later actually helped Ray escape prison by smuggling hacksaw blades in magazines to him. So he was just like, here, Ray. It's like, it was almost like a test escape to see if he could. Okay. But he's like, I'm gonna let that guy do it so that I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and eventually he later escaped himself. Just casual bank robber things, you know.
Yeah. I just want to see if I can escape.
Yeah, I just to see if I could. Yeah, like, I'm not gonna do it. I just don't know if I can.
Yeah. I want to know the limit of my power.
Yeah. So unfortunately, though, Clyde did not have as good a time. And this is where my first trigger warning is. We're going to get into a little bit of sexual assault and self-mutilation. So just skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. So, in East Ham Prison, there was an inmate named Ed Crowder who was working as a sort of surrogate guard. So, like, what they did was they would, like, find, like, lifers or, like, big guys, like, big, strong. I think Ed Crowder was, like, 6'1".
Oh, wow.
They were basically, they could lift trains, kind of big guys, and they would treat them nicer and give them good treatment in exchange for kind of keeping the other inmates in line. So Crowder was one of these. And he helped the guards abuse prisoners during the day. Then he got better meals, he got, like, a better room, he got, like, people would turn a blind eye to things that he was doing.
Yeah.
And he got free reign of the dorms at night. And Crowder was a convicted rapist.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So Crowder took a shine to Clyde. He sees this young kid, he's frail, he's small, and Clyde was repeatedly sexually assaulted by Crowder.
Poor Clyde.
For a year.
Oh my gosh. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's sad.
And you can imagine after a year, Clyde made the decision, enough is it's enough. I can't do this anymore.
No, that's, like you said, that's hell on earth. That's terrible.
Yeah. So on October 29th, 1931, Clyde stole a lead pipe from the work detail during the day, and he smuggled it into the door. He basically just shoved it down his pants, and they were like, all right, I'm off.
Yeah.
Then he lured Crowder into the bathroom, because, Crowder's keeping an eye out for him.
Yeah.
And then he proceeded to crush Crowder's skull in with the pipe.
Okay. That's some revenge.
Yeah. That's some violence.
Wow. That is some anger he needed to get out right there.
Yes. Crowder died almost instantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is Clyde's first murder.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think there would be more murders.
There are many murders. A lot of people die in this story. Yeah. So
Okay.
there are
First of many.
Yeah, this is the kind of the beginning. And a lot of people will die throughout the story, and it'll either be directly because of the Barrow gang, as they're later known, or just it was an accident, but it was attributed to them.
Gotcha.
So, another inmate named Aubrey Scaly was already serving life in Eastham, and he was like, "Oh shit, kid! Like that's a no-no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the bullet for this one."
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
Aubrey Scaly stepped in and he was like, "I'm gonna say that I did this." And what he did was Aubrey Scaly had a shiv, so he actually went to the body of Crowder and he punched a bunch of holes in Crowder.
Yeah.
And basically he went to the guards and was like, "I got into a knife fight in the bathroom."
Wow.
And they didn't see the fucking hole in this guy's head from a lead pipe. They were like, "Yeah, that looks like a knife fight to me."
Yeah.
And it just got added to Scaly's record, and Clyde got off scot-free.
Wow. What a huge thing to do for something in a prison, something like that.
Yeah.
That's
And I'm sure, I don't know what Aubrey was in for, but I'm sure he had a soft spot for Clyde, and I think he hated Crowder just as much.
Yeah.
He had his own reasons for hating Crowder, so this opportunity was presented, and he's like, "Here's this kid.
Yeah.
And he's got his whole life ahead of him, and suddenly he's gonna be here for life." I don't think so.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's wow.
Yeah. So then I remember Clyde had been sentenced to 14 years here of hard labor, and now he's just murdered a guy. And I think he was at this point. He was like, I've had enough. This place sucks. I hate it here. It's awful. This is awful. So we're going to talk about why Eastham was called the Bloody Ham, because it wasn't just for its brutality.
Oh gosh.
And there was one surefire way to get out of hard labor. So it varies on the source, but late January 1932, Clyde had 2 of his toes cut off with an axe.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. He cut off 2 of his toes. It was his big toe and a little bit of his index toe. I think it was on his right foot.
And the reason for this was?
So we could get out of hard labor.
If you were injured.
Yeah, if you're injured, and maimed like that, you physically cannot work hard labor.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So in some reports he did it himself, and in others he asked a fellow inmate to do it. But essentially, yeah, just he had an accident working or in the dorms, and he did it just to stop working in the yard.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah. And Clyde was like, best case scenario, I'm going to be paroled. I physically can't do my sentence.
Yeah.
So they're going to let me go.
Holy crap, but that's going to affect the rest of his life.
It did. And we'll get into how it affected his life later.
Oh my gosh.
It also proved very unnecessary.
Oh no.
Behind the scenes, his mom had been chatting to the judges, and she successfully convinced the judge to grant her son parole.
Oh my gosh, so he just did this to himself, and then the next day they're like, "Guess what, buddy, you're out of here." And he's like, "Oh, good, because of my foot." And he's like, "Actually, no, because of your mom." And he's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
He got the news 6 days later, and then he was out.
That's just...
2 weeks after that.
I mean, that was his goal, so good for him.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure, they're like, "Hey, good news, your mom talked to the judge and you're paroled." And he was just like, "Oh."
Like, you couldn't have given me a warning that this was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But because of his missing toes, Clyde walked with a limp for the rest of his life.
Understandably.
And he also couldn't drive comfortably in shoes. He was now a sock driver.
A sock driver. Wow. Me and Clyde had something in common. Who would have thought?
Allegedly.
Well, yeah, allegedly. I can confirm that I am a sock driver, but...
Oh, no. Yeah. Clyde was definitely a sock driver, too.
A sock driver.
His family also noted a huge change in his behavior, and his sister was quoted saying, "Something awful sure must have happened to him in prison, because it wasn't the same person when he got out."
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it changes you quite a bit. He went through a lot, so...
His buddy that he made in prison, Ralph Fultz, observed that Clyde had changed from a schoolboy to a rattlesnake.
That is quite a interesting description change.
Yeah. Clyde went through it, and I think, if he hadn't been sent to Eastham, he probably would have just stayed in misdemeanor zone. And, life would have laid out very different, because someone made the decision to send him there. It pretty much kind of triggered what happens next. So, according to records, Clyde really did try to live straight after this. He tried to get a job. He tried, getting himself situated. He was trying very hard not to go back to prison. He was like, that was awful. I've been pardoned. I've got a clean slate. Let's keep it there.
Yeah.
And he even managed to score a job at the Dallas Glass Company.
Wow.
But if you remember, Clyde had issues holding down jobs because the police liked to knock on the door and be like, "Hey, you're under arrest for suspicion."
Yeah, so that was still going on.
Still happened, and they literally harassed him for weeks. And it cost him his job.
That poor guy is literally just trying to, like you said, move on, get out of the system, get out of that cycle, and they will not allow him to do that.
Yeah, and because they knew him. They were like, "We know this kid. We know that he's always up to no good. We're not
gonna wait for it. You're gonna snap. We're gonna just harass you now and make you do it."
Yeah, pretty much. And it was a safe thing because they're like, I think they knew that he was going straight too, and they're like, "Oh, what are you gonna do about it? You're gonna fight us? You're not a criminal anymore." And so yeah, I think it once again, he'd been through all of this in Eastham, and then came out and he was still being harassed, and he was like, "I'm done. I'm done." So keep in mind as well, the depression is now in full swing. So finding work was incredibly hard, and keeping work was even harder. So
yeah,
I'm sure just that on top of everything was just like, "Ugh, are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
So Bonnie and him were also now on a bit of a rough patch. So Clyde was no longer this flawless desperado that she made him believe. He got out of Waco, he escaped for a week, didn't call her, immediately got captured again and got sent off to Eastham. The letters started fizzling out. She was like, "You're not the criminal I thought you were. You're not this bad boy. This gentleman outlaw that I thought you were." And she was disappointed.
Yeah.
So much to the point where she started seeing other people.
Oh no.
Yeah. So she was allowed to, though. She wasn't married to the guy. Her boyfriend disappeared essentially for a year.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Okay, well, fine. I'll make my own life."
Yeah. Am I just supposed to sit here and wait for you?
Yeah, pretty much. So she was like, I ain't waiting for no chestnut." So Clyde got out, and he had a job for about 5 minutes, and he rocked up to Bonnie's house while she was with her new boyfriend.
Oh.
Yeah. And so Bonnie saw Clyde, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I like that guy." And then suddenly they were back together again.
That's it. She's like, "Oh, okay, bye."
Yeah, Clyde knocked on the door. He came in his suit. He had a job. He had. I'm sure he had flowers in his hair. And he's like, "I'm real sorry, Bonnie, for the way I treated you." And she was like, "All right, I forgive you."
Wow, this is all I ever wanted.
Yeah, and so the new ex-boyfriend just saw himself out. He was like, "There's something going on here. I'm just gonna leave." He's like,
That's lovely.
I'm good. I'm not getting between that. That's a lot.
No. That's funny.
So at this point now, Fultz and Hamilton had done their trial prison escapes with the magazines and the hacksaw. So now all three of them were out of prison. And Clyde was like, guys, I got a great idea. We're going to go steal a bunch of guns. We're going to steal a bunch of money. And we're going to attack Eastham Prison. And we're going to bust all the boys out.
What? Oh.
They're going to bust all the boys out.
They just said, "You know what? Fuck that place in general. We're all out of here. And you know what we should do? Just get all those boys out too."
Yeah, and I'm sure he was also thinking about the guy that saved his life, the Aubrey Scaly who took the bullet. I'm sure he was like, I want to get that guy. He's there for life. And now he's there for 2 lives. He doesn't deserve that. He's clearly like, I don't know what he's there for, but he's looking out for me. So I want to get him out. So I'm sure he built, I'm sure, a lot of relationships while he was there. It was hell, but he had boys that he respected. So he's like, let's do it. Let's do a prison break.
Holy crap.
And his plan was very simple. I have it here in quotes. I'd like to shoot all these damn guards and turn everybody loose.
That's
the plan.
Yeah. It's foolproof.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't see
What
any
could go
problems.
wrong?
I don't see any problems with this plan. So, the boys were all back together in 1932, and they were recruiting for a prison raid. So it was officially Bonnie, Clyde, Ralph Fultz, and Ray Hamilton. And the Barrow Gang was born.
Wow.
Needless to say, they were all children and amateurs, and things did not go well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's not surprising.
No. So before you can do a prison raid, you gotta get ammo, you gotta get ammunition, you've gotta get the firepower to take on a prison.
Yeah.
So on March 25th, 1932, Clyde decided to rob Sims Oil Company, which was a block away from where his father worked.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure that went great.
They successfully subdued the employees, but found that the safe was empty.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And
Oh,
Clyde's
good luck.
like, why did we rob an oil company again? Why do we do that? You know what's better? A bank. Bank waiter. That's where the money's at. So they cased,
Literally.
Yeah, quite literally. So they cased out a bank in Lawrence, Kansas. And they rushed the building when the bank president was opening for business.
Oh.
So once again, successfully apprehended all the employees inside. The gang piled into the getaway car and they zoomed away.
Wow. This is just the four of them at this point?
Yes, just four of them. I'm sure they had a couple of like temps that they kind of came in and out. And I'm kind of like, I'm simplifying, but it was always like they were the four core, and I'm sure they had like a couple of guys that they paid a little extra on the side to help out.
Yeah, just some muscle.
Yeah. Now keep in mind also, like, Ray Hamilton is the seasoned bank robber. Fultz is the bank escapee guy. Bonnie's just, she's ride or die at this point. She's
just Bonnie.
She's also the getaway driver. So she's usually in the car, or she's scoping out the joint. She does a lot of like the surveillance, but she's always in there with them.
Okay.
And then Clyde's the ideas guy. He is also a really good getaway driver. Clyde was known for being a really, really good driver.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So this was a successful bank robbery. And Fultz would claim that the gang scored close to $33,000, which is $600,000 today.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good chunk of change right there, especially for your first bank robbery. Like that's a good pile of
it's good money.
moolah.
Yeah, and it's the Depression, so suddenly you're looking at $33,000. Like, whoa, that's some good money.
Probably more money than any of them have ever seen in their lives. Truly.
No, and I'm sure. Yeah, they were all born poor. They were all dirt poor. So it's like suddenly like, this is how we do it. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
So what Clyde and Fultz did was they spent their entire cut on weapons and bulletproof vests. And Ray Hamilton spent his cut taking a vacation in Michigan.
That's what I would do too, I think, actually.
Yeah.
If I won the lottery tomorrow, Michigan is the first place I'd go.
Yeah. Well, see, Ray wasn't big on the idea of East Ham Prison. He was like, I don't really want to go anywhere near there again, guys. Like, I'm not feeling
Pretty
this
shit.
I'm not feeling this prison raid. Like, I just want to rob banks and get money. Like, that's kind of all I want to do. And you guys are like becoming a militia at this point. So I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So, yeah, he took his little vacay in Michigan, and Clyde was like, "Meh, we don't need him. like he's not contributing much. Like, we don't need him. We're fine." Clyde forgot that he was the bank robber. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, without Ray, Clyde was not a good bank robber, because Ray had all the experience, he had the planning, he knew how to do it, and Clyde was just like, yeah, we're gonna do that.
Yeah, we've done this before, we'll do it again.
Yeah. And
oh, man.
at this point, turns out the guy that Clyde spent all his money on the guns and the bulletproof vests shortchanged them a little bit.
Oh.
So they decided to test their new arsenal, and half of the guns didn't fire, and the ones that did, they went right through the bulletproof vests.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so the vests aren't bulletproof and the guns don't work, and the money is
Well, good
gone.
thing they tested it beforehand. I mean,
Yeah.
at least they have the forethought to do that.
Yeah, this story would be a lot shorter if they hadn't. But yeah, so, and now the money's gone. Like, that was their entire cut, and it's just some...
Wait, where was Bonnie's cut? Did she just get clothes and stuff?
I'm sure she was living her best life. She was like, just for savings, that's retirement. No, I think she bought herself some new clothes, and she bought herself some makeup. She really liked to look good, so I'm sure she put a lot of her money into just looking the part.
She's got to be a mob wife, okay?
She's got things.
Looking like it.
She's trying to look. She's emulating that flappers mentality in the 30s. Like she was always beautiful.
Yeah,
everybody knew it.
I love it.
So sometime a little while later, the gang was just outside of Dallas, and their car ran out of gas.
It's always something.
They didn't have any money. They had no money. They had a stolen car. Ran out of gas. So a mailman named Bill Owens stopped to see if they needed help. And they immediately pulled their guns on him, and they hijacked his car.
A mail car.
Yeah, I think it was like a pickup truck, but it was like a really old, like beat down pickup truck.
Oh man!
And they kidnapped Owens.
Oh no!
They just loaded him in the car, like, get in, old man, and they just got into the car and they just drove.
And he's like, well,
yeah. So they released him a little bit further down the road. They were just like, yeah, like we just wanted the car. And so, as the gang is letting him go, Owen's like, hey guys, wait. Before you go, can I have my mailbag back? And also, when you're done with my car, can you set it on fire?
Is this guy legit? Is he like...
He's like, yeah, when you're done with my car, can you set it on fire? And it was because if the car was damaged in a hijacking, the government had to buy him a new one.
I love it. He's like, yeah, no, I'm down with it, guys. You do what you gotta do. I'm just, if you don't mind, while you're at it, I mean, it would probably help us both out. Just set it on fire. Like, just real quick.
And they were like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And he was like, great, cool. I'm gonna go deliver these letters on foot then. I'll see you guys later. And they were like, all right, bye.
Well, that is the best hijacking story I've ever heard in my life. I wish they all went that way.
Well,
oh god. Oh dear.
Well, we'll get into it. So now, after this, Clyde is like, wait a minute. Why am I paying for guns when I can just steal them?
It's a good thought.
Yeah, he's like, why do I have to go through all of these back channels and I have to pay for faulty guns when I can just go to an armory and take them?
Sure.
And the gang was like, yeah. Great point. Good job. That's why you're the ideas guy. So, on April 19th, 1932, they staged a robbery on a hardware store in Kaufman, Texas. So, back in these days, the hardware stores were places you could just go and buy guns.
Okay, I assumed when you said that.
Like, this is a common thing that you'll see later. A lot of these stores, like, they kind of, like... They were this thing, but they also did this thing. I think it's kind of like you can go to Walmart and buy a handgun in certain states.
I was going to compare it to you go to a barber and get a surgery. Like
Exactly.
Along those lines.
That's a perfect example. Yeah, you're going in for a haircut and they're like, hey, do you need like minor surgery? And he's like, well, actually, now that you're talking about it.
Hey man, that cough doesn't sound good. You want me to just like start taking out some extra organ? You don't need that one.
Yeah, I'll take that out for you. Yeah, it was very much that. And there's a couple of those like throughout the story. So, but hardware stores and gun salesmen, they were the same building.
Okay.
Especially in Texas.
Yeah.
So, based on their current track record, you can imagine how that one went.
Yeah, not good.
Not good. A night watch them caught them immediately, sounded the alarm, and started shooting at them.
Oh no, that's I'm like, you're robbing a gun store and they have guns. Like that's I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I'm sure like this gang, like, well, now it's 3 of them at this point because Ray Hamilton's on vacay in Michigan, so it's 3 of them. They're nicely dressed. And they're
with no bulletproof vest.
And these are small towns. They stand out. So they're these locals who've known like the 800 people in their towns. So they're like, I don't know those 3. They're rather suspicious. And they're like, hey, give us your guns. They're like, I don't think so. Yeah, there's a lot of that. So, so the gang fled, and pretty much as the alarm sounded, it alerted the entire town. So now the entire town is shooting at them. So they're being chased by an entire town because they tried to rob a hardware store.
I imagine people running down with pitchforks and there's guns shooting off and people got torches and stuff. It's just a stampede through the town square,
It's very Looney Tunes. It's like that cloud of dust with the pitchforks and the guns all kind of like coming out and it's just chasing them down this road. Yeah. Well, they fled down a country road, but it had been raining the night before and was very muddy, so Clyde drove into a mud hole and got the car stuck.
Clyde!
And they were like, shit.
I heard you were a good driver. What the fuck?
Yeah. They were like, shit. So Then they ran on foot to a nearby farm and stole 2 mules and made their getaway on 2 mules.
Mules won't get stuck in mud. They're mud-proof.
No, they're a little bit slower, though. So then they took these mules to the next town over and stole a car, which immediately ran out of gas.
They are... how does this go on for 3 years? They're so bad at this.
I know.
Like, what? How are they, like, what the fuck?
They're babies. They're young. They're, like, just breaking their 20s. They're like, we know what we're doing, and they don't.
They're literally the opposite of the mystery gang with, like, solving, like, mysteries. Like, they're just out there, like, they just jump into something and it's not working. They're like, oh, man, and they try to do something else. That's not working. And then they're just riding on these mules. They're like, hurry up. And the mules are, going as fast as they can with their tiny little stubby legs. And the townsfolk are running, going, oh, they're too fast for us.
It is
what the fuck?
You can just put Buddy Hill music over this, and it's like, yeah, I guess. But this is what happened. So, they had a stolen car, they lost it in a mud pile. They stole 2 mules, they lost them when they got the new car. The new car ran out of gas. They're being chased by 2 towns now at this point, all shooting at them. Because this town woke up, they're like, hey, they're still in that car. Get them.
Oh my gosh. Imagine you come out, your car's gone, but there's 2 mules in this place.
And I'm like, fair deal.
Cool. Was this like a weird tooth fairy? Like, I don't know. Like,
I didn't want this. I didn't want this. Well, so now the gang is being chased by 2 towns. They have no car, so they make a break on foot. During this chase, Fultz is shot in the arm.
Oh no.
Eventually, 1 bullet hit them.
Oh gosh.
This cloud of bullets being fired into the sky, one bullet hit Fultz. So they came across a muddy creek bed. Fultz is wounded, and Bonnie couldn't keep up. She's smaller. Her legs are. She's not used to running on foot. I think she's probably wearing heels at the time because she's dressed really nicely.
And that's exactly how I imagined her. Yeah.
She's really struggling to keep up. Clyde, who's got a limp because he's lost 2 of his toes, he's looking at he's got a muddy creek bed. He's looking at his 2 accomplices, who one is, is her first time in this kind of chase, and the other one is wounded. And he's thinking back to his first run-in with his brother all the way back in a couple of years ago, where his brother got shot in the legs, and he's just like, yeah, that plan will do. And he leaves them both behind.
Oh.
Yeah, Clyde's like, it was fun, guys. I'll see you in a bit. I'll come get you. I'll never forget you.
Yeah, oh man.
And
okay,
Bonnie and Fultz were captured and sent right off to jail. And Clyde was like, bye.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Clyde, you son of a bitch.
he did say, like, I'm gonna get you guys out, and he deliberately, he's like, okay, my gang is either in Michigan or in prison, and one of those is a really bad place, and the other one is prison. I'm kidding. Don't come for me, Michigan. He's like, I need to get my gang out. I need to get them out. So, starts planning a scheme and bust his guys out of prison.
Yeah.
So, Clyde got involved in a robbery in Salina, Texas, that, no surprise, went awry. So, while attempting to break into another hardware store, Clyde accidentally broke into the store next door.
Yep.
Which was
That's the next skit that the writers wrote for him, was just breaking into the wrong store. This is like classic comedy. Like, what the hell?
It is. It's like these guys are like, they're famous for being like these notorious outlaws, and you're reading like how they start, and you're like, what? What? Yeah. So Clyde accidentally broke into a drugstore next to this hardware store, which happened to have the mayor inside.
Oh, of course it did.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah, so Clyde's like, oh shit. So he manages to tie up the employees of the drugstore and the hardware store and the mayor, and he loads them into a nearby boxcar.
He does this alone, all by himself?
No, he has like I think he's running with like 2 other kind of like temp outlaws. They were like basically like, he was like, I'll help you guys, and like I get a cut so I can get my guys out of prison.
Gotcha.
They were like, yeah, sure, come along. Yeah, he was with some boys. And
okay,
so they managed to tie up the employees of both stores and the mayor, and they're like, well, that was easy. Let's test out the guns that we just got from this hardware store. And they start firing into the air, which alerted the town that something was happening.
Oh my god, these guys!
So now that they're like having fun, they're shooting their guns, and they're seeing that these cops are racing towards them. They're like, oh shit, and they abandon their haul.
So all of that for nothing.
Nothing. They could have just gotten away. And they just left it all behind.
It's a fitting end.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
That's Bonnie and Clyde.
That's literally, like, I imagine this, like, these episodes of this, like, Bonnie and Clyde show. Like you said, and that's Bonnie and Clyde.
It's comical to a degree. And you'll see where things start to take a turn. But for now, it's just kind of like, what the fuck, guys? They're bumbling. They're babies. Yeah. So, meanwhile, while Clyde is losing guns and, just doing Clyde things, Bonnie is in prison.
Yeah. Yeah, what is prison like for Bonnie at this time? I'm curious.
Yeah, so prison for Bonnie was a time where she really leaned into her poet dreams.
Okay.
Yeah, while she was in prison, she penned 10 odes, which she called Poetry from Life's Other Side.
Wow, okay.
And she actually wrote poems on a bank notebook she stole from the First National Bank of Burnet, Texas.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a lot of B's, it's a lot of U's, it's a lot of T's. Burnett.
Wow. And that in and of itself is art.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the fun. That's a whole other character of the story, is the cities in Texas.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. So, her most famous poem in this set is The Story of Suicide Sal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a poem about an innocent country girl who was lured by her boyfriend into a life of crime and then left behind in prison.
I wonder who that could be about.
I know, it's like, I don't know, where does she get this stuff? Like,
that is like so like out of like wild, her imagination, man.
Yeah, truly, just the Shakespeare of her time. Yeah, you can tell that this was probably her time to work through a lot of feelings, and I'm sure like she understood like the if you get captured you're left behind sort of plan, but I'm sure it still hurt.
Oh yeah.
And this is her first time in prison, so it's just like I thought this was supposed to be fun, and now I'm here. And my boyfriend.
Her first crime was a cakewalk, and then she gets left behind, and she's really in prison, like you said. Saying these things and being like, "Oh, I'm down for that." That's one thing, and then having to gotta walk the walk now. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, and Clyde's not visiting her because he's wanted. He can't just walk into prison and visit her, so she's just sitting in prison, wondering what happened to Clyde. What's he doing? Is he coming to get me? She doesn't know.
Yeah, the unknown, I'm sure, made it the most scary.
Yeah. So, back to Clyde. Speaking of, May 1st, Clyde participated in a robbery in Hillsborough, Texas, which had probably the worst outcome out of these series of misadventures.
Oh, no.
So, a shopkeeper named J.N. Butcher was shot and killed after opening a safe and reaching for a gun.
Oh, no.
Butcher's wife later identified Clyde Barrow as one of the shooters. Clyde was not one of the shooters.
Oh.
Clyde was the getaway driver.
But he was there, and that was...
But Clyde had been the scout for this particular robbery, and he stood out because he was nicely dressed, so the wife recognized Clyde and saw that he was scoping around. Probably saw him in the group after Butcher was shot and was like, that's the one, that's the guy.
Yeah.
So the murder got attributed to Clyde, even though he didn't pull the trigger, he was part of it.
Yep.
When they tallied up the loot after this robbery, it was only about $1,500.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This man died over $1,000. Mm-hmm.
And another thing that came out of it was Ray Hamilton was also accused of this murder, but it wasn't him because he was in Michigan. He was vacationing away, and they were like, he's a known accomplice of Clyde Barrow, so I guess he was just another one of the shooters. So he got that tacked to his sentence, and he wasn't even there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Good job, Clyde.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't Clyde's fault, but it's just. Yeah. So, but this is technically Clyde's first public murder, and it's his second murder attributed to Clyde Barrow.
Yeah.
So now he's not just wanted for theft, he's wanted for murder. So now that's what Clyde's now dealing with.
Wow. Yeah, that's a hefty thing to be carrying on you.
Oh, yeah. So now, at this point, Fultz pleaded guilty to armed robbery and auto theft. And he was awarded 10 years back in the bloody ham.
Are you fucking for real?
Yep. That he was sentenced back to 10 years back in East Ham prison. It would be his third adventure there.
That's terrible. That's absolutely gross.
Yeah. So Bonnie, on the other hand, got off rather lucky. So compared to Fultz and Clyde, Bonnie was a woman, and she was unassuming. She had also charmed the pants off the entire prison staff. They loved Bonnie. She was friendly with the janitors. She was friendly with the guards. You know, they're like, "Oh, Miss Bonnie, is there anything we could get you, Miss Bonnie?"
Her and her poetry.
Yeah, she's just, you know, being like this, and I think this was also part of her plan. She was supposed to play the part of like this doe-eyed, like, "I don't know, officer, I don't know how I got here. They just plumb just kidnapped me out of the blue, and I'm just here now, and let me just write some poetry on this banknote, how sad I am." And they were like, "Oh, Miss Bonnie." It was,
wow.
It was just, and I'm sure she played it to perfection, but I'm sure she also felt some of those feelings too, where she's just like, "Why am I in prison, goddammit?"
Oh yeah, totally. Why me?
Why am I here? So,
yeah.
And Bonnie, this is consistent through the entire story. Everyone said that Bonnie was charming as hell. Like, she had the mouth of a sailor, but she was incredibly witty, she was smart, she was just fun to be around. So, like, anyone who met Bonnie never had any complaints about her.
Yeah.
So on June 17th, 1932, the grand jury failed to indict Bonnie, and she was officially freed from prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. They're just like, nah, this charming lady couldn't do it.
No, she was not busted out of prison either, Clyde. She was released.
Wow.
On her way out, she handed her stack of poems to the prison janitor's wife.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's why we can read them. You can look up all of Clyde's. Clyde didn't write poetry. He was playing the saxophone. You can read Bonnie's poetry online. You can find all of her poems, and it's because she handed them off. They weren't destroyed in any car accidents. They weren't, left behind. They weren't, thrown away. It's because she handed them these set over to this janitor's wife that we can read them now.
Wow, and she had the forethought to save them. That's like the most interesting thing. It's just
if you think about the time frame, we're in 32 right now, and Bonnie and Clyde's adventures really end in 34. So, she probably had them and just holding on to them, and then 34, Bonnie and Clyde are famous, and she's just like, "Oh shit, I have Bonnie's poems."
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, well, they become quite the souvenir couple at the end. Like, just being associated with Bonnie and Clyde was quite a thing. The rise to stardom. Yeah. All right. So, she handed her poems over to the janitor's wife, and Clyde was waiting for her right outside. He was like, "Babe, so good to see you." And she's like,
I hope she just slapped him right across that face.
Bonnie was like, "Babe, I'm out."
Wow. Right back into his arms.
Pretty much. She saw him and she was like, "Ah, shit, there's that lightning bolt again. Fuck's sake."
They really couldn't help themselves with each other.
No,
like they
loved each other.
All is forgiven the minute they saw each other. I love my husband too, but maybe. I don't know. I've never been in prison. And I honestly, I think just seeing him would probably be enough. Yeah, and especially when you've been in this situation where you're just like, huh. Yeah. Yeah, so... yeah, and let it be known, Bonnie and Clyde really did love each other. They really, really did. Yeah. So, like... Don't let any. It's just so rare at that time, like, to see two people actually that in love, because people honestly didn't really have the luxury of like getting married for love. I feel like for a really long time, like there was marriages were something of convenience and just lifestyle arrangements and stuff like that. So it's very interesting to see these two people that just like through all of this. Yeah, no, 100%. Really, they are just in love. There's a couple of people that they associate with later who have that, where it's like, oh, they're on their third husband because the first two were arranged. Yeah. And it's like... That's crazy. Yeah. Wild. Yeah. So, anyway, Bonnie and Clyde back together. They're living it up. Yeah. Ray Fultz, however, shipped off to East End Prison, and this is pretty much where he leaves the group. Like, Fultz has left the Barrow Gang now permanently. He's off to East End. He never rides with Bonnie and Clyde again. Do they not rescue him, or he just doesn't want to be associated with them? It's a combination. They did... Well, I don't want to spoil too much, but like they did plan to rescue him, but they just didn't get lucky. And then other events came into play where he was just released, and he didn't get a chance to come back to them. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, meanwhile, Ray Hamilton's partying it up in Michigan. And he hears about this Hillsborough murder and finds out he's suspected of being there, and he's like, "Guys, what the fuck? Yeah. I wasn't even there. Guys, I was on vacation. Guys, guess what?" And he's looking at this and he's thinking about it, and he's like, "I bet that was fucking Clyde. I bet Clyde did that." So he comes back and he's like, "Clyde, what the fuck?" And he's like, "Ray." Once again, for old time's sake, and Grace's like, "Yeah, right." Wow.
The boys are back together.
And the boys are back in town.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And in truth, at this point, because Ray's back, he's the smart one. He's the bank robber. They got into a really good rhythm of robbing gas stations, funeral parlors, and grocery stores.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sure funeral parlors actually had quite a bit of cash on hand.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that they were probably the wealthiest of the things that they hit.
Yeah, that's like stuck out to me immediately. I'm like, wow, what a bad idea. It's evil, but like, yeah, no, that's I'm sure there's a lot of money.
Yeah, and this kind of became their MO. They hit gas stations, they hit funeral parlors, and hit grocery stores. That was kind of what Bonnie and Clyde and the Barrow gang hit. So, and they got into a really good rhythm of it with Ray back in the gang.
Gotcha.
And then the boys were like, well, let's celebrate. We're back together. Like, things are going well. We have money for the first time in, like, ever. Let's go celebrate.
Don't tell me they shot some more guns in the air.
No. So, August 5th, 1932, they dropped Bonnie off at her mother's house in West Dallas, and Clyde, Ray Hamilton, and 2 other accomplices named Everett Milligan and Ross Dyer were like, let's go do some boy stuff. Let's go be guys. So they decided to drive through Stringtown, Oklahoma in a stolen car.
Oh, that's just some boy things.
I'm just gonna say, all of the cars that they drive in these adventures are stolen. Like, they're all stolen. They never owned a car.
I feel like that's the start of any of their nights. They're just like, hey, yeah, you were gonna get food tonight? Cool, we're gonna steal a car first, though, right?
Yeah,
that's
like,
just implied.
Of course, yeah, like, we can't start the night until, like, the honorary car is stolen. Like,
exactly.
And it's gotta be a Ford V8. And that was the thing that Clyde loved to drive. And we can even, but it's true, because, like, Ford V8s, they were, like, the top-of-the-line car back in the day. Like, they were faster than all of the other cars that had been manufactured at the time. Like, the top speed of the Ford V8 was, like, 75 miles an hour. And the cars that the cops were driving they hit, like, 35 max. So if
that's ridiculous.
So if you got yourself a Ford V8, you were essentially guaranteed getaway, and Clyde loved driving a Ford V8. He was good at driving Ford V8s. So if Clyde was behind the wheel and they were in a car chase, Clyde was pretty much guaranteed to get out.
Yeah.
Unless the other people were also driving Ford V8s, in which case it was just a very strange 75-mile-an-hour car chase.
That's very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and I'm not gonna. And it's the newest car as well. It's the most expensive car. They're not gonna buy that shit. They're just gonna steal a bunch.
They seem plentiful, so why not?
Yeah. So they're driving through Stringtown, Oklahoma, and they come across a community dance, and they're like, that looks rad as hell. I for one love a small town community dance.
Every criminal's got to cut a break, and just.
Yeah. And they're in Oklahoma. People aren't looking for them here. They're wanted in Texas. Oklahoma's like, Barrow Gang who? We don't know those assholes.
Yeah. So there's like some well-dressed dapper guys. Yeah, come and dance with us, folks.
Now, it's funny that you say that because they were well-dressed dapper guys, and this was small-town Oklahoma. And they're like, who are these 3 young men in suits just rocking up to our small community dance?
Yeah.
They stuck out like a sore thumb. And they had a nice car, too. And they're like, who are these 4 random guys just like rocking up and like coming to our dance?
Looking like that.
And drinking our alcohol.
Oh.
Yeah, prohibition's on, baby, but Oklahoma, Stringtown, they had the alcohol.
Oh my gosh, and these guys are just coming in just drinking it willy-nilly, like that's just like a thing you can do?
Yeah, and like I said, they're not wanted here, it's Oklahoma, so they're like, there's no police about, police aren't looking for us. We're like, we're safe to cut a rug here, like we can do whatever we want to do.
Or so they thought.
Or so they thought, because prohibition is in effect and they're drinking alcohol. There were in fact 2 police officers around, looking out for alcohol.
Of course.
They were mostly there to break up fights, and like, I mean, especially in small town, they're like, I'll turn a blind eye to Cousin Jed having the moonshine over there. But these 3 well-dressed in a new car assholes are showing up. They're dancing with our women. They're drinking our whiskey.
Yeah, fuck those guys.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
These cops had no training and no weapons. They had no weapons.
Oh.
Yeah, you
So what are they even gonna do about it, chumps?
They were just gonna arrest these handsome men.
With no weapons?
They didn't know who they were. And that's the big ticket. They did not know who they were. Yeah. So, at about 10 p.m. in the evening's festivities, Sheriff Charlie Maxwell and Deputy Sheriff Eugene Moore approached the stationary car in a parking lot. So Hamilton was apparently he was singing, he was swaying, he very obviously intoxicated. and the rest of the boys were sipping on what appeared to be moonshine.
Love it. They're just not trying to be subtle.
No, and because I don't think they need to be. They don't think that there are cops around.
Yeah.
And so Moore calls out to the car and he's like, hey, guys, like, what the fuck? Like, we're not supposed to be doing that. You're under arrest. And Clyde and Ray were like, what the fuck?
Oh no, their eyes popping out of their head like Shaggy and Scooby.
But also keep in mind, they now know that they have murder warrants out on their names. People are looking for Clyde and Ray, even though they didn't kill anyone, but they know that people are looking for them. So the murder warrant's fresh in their minds. And suddenly there's these two cops like, hey, you guys, you're under arrest. Like, what do you, like, your brain isn't like, it's not because, like, I'm a well-dressed man in small-town Oklahoma drinking alcohol. They think it's, oh shit, they know that I killed that guy. Or that I supposedly killed that guy. So, Clyde and Ray immediately opened fire on the officers. At point blank. At point blank range.
No hesitation.
Nope. Deputy Moore was shot 6 times, and Maxwell was knocked prone with 7 bullets in his chest and stomach.
Jesus.
Maxwell survives by the skin of his teeth only because a nearby bootlegger poured whiskey into his wound to sterilize it.
What?
Yeah, he was saved by moonshine, baby.
Oh, thank God for alcohol. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
That's wild. Well, I mean,
that's the only thing that saved his life.
That's
Deputy
crazy.
Moore, however, was not so lucky because he was killed immediately.
Yeah.
I
mean, 6 or 7 bullets, that's a hard thing to live from. I'm very shocked that one of them survived.
Yeah, 6 bullets at point-blank range. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did not stand a chance. He was 30 at the time, and he was married with 3 small children.
That's sad.
And this is the 3rd murder that Clyde has committed in his life, and it is the 2nd one that they now attribute to the Clyde gang.
And this is where we start to not be on their side, because it's like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah, and like... It's just a lot. It's just like, oh, guys.
Yeah.
So basically, the boys book it out of Stringtown, and they accidentally leave one of theirs behind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they left their boy Everett Milligan behind, and he was like, guys, what the fuck?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, he was like, fuck's sake. And so now they're looking at a dead cop, a severely wounded cop, 3 guys peeling out of there, and there's this one guy to take the blame, and he's like, I'm not taking the blame for this. I didn't do this.
Yeah.
He immediately outs Clyde and Ray. He's like, it was them. Like,
wow.
It was them. Like, I was. They just brought me into town for a good time, not a long time. They lost their minds. They shot that guy. Like, wasn't me. Was not me. Yeah, so the boys pretty much, they race back down to Texas, and they pick up Bonnie, and they're like, Bonnie, you'll never guess what the fuck happened. And she's like, guys,
oh my gosh.
She's like, guys, what the fuck? I was gone 10 minutes.
Literally, I had dinner with my mom.
Yeah, she's like, guys, like, what the fuck? Like, you were supposed to just go have fun. That's not fun. That's a problem.
Oh my god.
But thankfully, Bonnie had her thinking cap on, and she's like, guys, I've done the math. We're wanted now in Texas and Oklahoma. You know where we're not wanted? New Mexico.
Michigan?
New Mexico.
Oh, okay. New Mexico.
They're not wanted in Michigan either, but New Mexico was closer.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so Bonnie has an aunt up in New Mexico called E.M. Stamps. And she's like, great idea, guys. Let's go visit my aunt in New Mexico, let the heat die down a little bit. You know, regroup, count the guns, count the cash, figure out what's going on, like, make a plan. And the boys are like,
yeah.
Duh, Bonnie, you're so smart. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It was not a great idea.
Of course not.
It was not a great idea.
So what went wrong?
So, well, the first thing that went wrong was that the car they drove up to New Mexico in was stolen.
Of course. That's how the adventures start, lady. Did we not remember this?
Yes,
that's implied.
Yes, but unfortunately, that's what gets them caught most of the time. They're like, that car is stolen. They're like, shit, I forgot about that part. My cunning ruse was seen through.
I really feel like at this point that they have stolen so many cars, like that's something that they're not even like in their head, they're not even like acknowledging that it's a crime. That's literally just like, that's how they get in a car, is they go to someone else's car and get in it and drive away. Like,
yeah.
It is not, that's not a crime to them. It's just like, we're just using this car. Like, yeah. That's just what they're doing. Like,
yeah, because I think in their mind as well, like they weren't, aside from the one that they set on fire, they're just borrowing the car. Like the car they'll drive until it runs out of gas, like stop where it runs out of gas, go get another one and try. And it's basically just like a fucking like It's just a caravan, essentially.
Exactly. So, like, in their mind, like, especially with all the stuff that they're doing and actually stealing and stuff like that, they're just like, no, like, this isn't, like, I don't think in their minds they really thought about that at all.
No, I think with now 2 murder warrants out, like, that was the most forefront thing. They're like, I need to get out quickly and efficiently, and I need this burnable car. Stolen car is just the way to go.
Yeah.
Right, so we're heading to New Mexico in a stolen car, and they're making their way downtown walking fast. There's a deputy sheriff, Joe Johns, and he was in the neighborhood, and he was like, that car has an out-of-state license plate.
Suspicious.
That's real weird, because this is depression, and people aren't taking vacations. They can't afford to.
Yeah.
So out-of-state license plates stood out like a sore thumb. They're like, that's so strange, it's got a Texas license plate, and now we're in New Mexico, like...
Yeah, what you doing here?
It's kind of weird. But he's also like, you know, like, that's going to be really awkward if I start chasing them and they're just tourists. Like, they're just happen to be, like, the high-end people that can't afford a vacation.
Yeah.
So instead, I'm just going to run the license plate and see what happens. I'm just going to...
Oh, gosh.
Just going to... Whoa, it's stolen! That's crazy!
Just as he suspected.
Yeah, Johns is like, alright, now I should have chased those boys. But he knows that they're in New Mexico, and he kind of knows, like, where they're going, and he knows Bonnie's aunt. He knows E.M. Stamps.
Oh, no.
So he's driving around the neighborhood. He sees the same car parked outside of Bonnie's aunt's house, and he's like, I'm just gonna ask about that. That's really weird.
Yeah.
So Johns walks up to the house, and he's just like, he just knocks on the door, and he's like, I'm just gonna have a civil conversation. He just knocks on the door, and it's answered by Clyde holding a shotgun.
Oh my god, of course.
Mm-hmm. And so, Johns is just like, well, not really how I thought my day was gonna go, I'm gonna be honest with you. Bonnie, Clyde, and Ray kidnap Officer Johns.
Okay.
Get in the stolen car and just speed off.
No plan, I'm assuming. This is just, it's happening.
No plan. They were just like, oh shit, we need to grab this guy before he tells people where we are. So Bonnie's aunt's looking at all of this, and she's like, what the fuck?
What just happened?
Yeah, she's like, she's a law-abiding citizen as well. She has no criminal connections. She's like, she pays her taxes. She goes to church. She's a law-abiding citizen. And she's just watched her niece's new quote-unquote husband, because she introduced Clyde as her husband.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, I don't really like this Clyde boy, I'm gonna be honest with you. And then she's just watched them kidnap a police officer. She's like, all right, that's a bit too much for me, I'm gonna be honest with you. So she calls the police. She calls the New Mexico police, and she's just like, hey, I think my niece and her husband just kidnapped one of your officers.
I think. I've never seen this happen before.
This is a very new experience to me. You let me know if this has happened to you before. And so then now the New Mexico police are panicked. So they're like, oh shit. If that's the Barrow gang who have killed 2 people before, they've just stolen an officer.
Yeah.
We don't know where he is. And a few hours later, they get a call that a headless corpse is found on the side of the road.
Oh my god.
But a few days after that, a police station gets a call from San Antonio from Deputy Johns, and he's like, guys, I'm fine.
What?
Yes.
What? Oh, thank God. I was ready to hate them.
He's fine. Yeah, no, he's fine. He calls him and he's like, yeah, guys, like, they just loaded me in the car, took me down the road, like, they drove me to San Antonio, Texas, and released me unharmed. It was really weird.
It's really weird, but now I'm just, like, stuck here. Can you come pick me up?
Yeah, pretty much. He was just like, can someone come get me? Like, I'm in Texas now, and I don't think I'm supposed to be here.
I'd love to go home.
Yeah, he was like, he was a little roughed up and, like, weirded out that he was suddenly in Texas, but, like, otherwise he was totally fine. And they were like, what about the headless body? And he's like, unrelated.
What headless body? What?
Like, unrelated headless body, I guess? It was just a random murder that happened. It was on the same road that he was stolen on, too. So people were like, what? And, like,
I mean, I guess when you see one criminal doing something and the other criminal's like, might as well take advantage of this. Like, they're already wanted for murder. I'm gonna...
Yeah, no, just don't worry. The headless body was not attributed to them, but it was definitely like, oh my god, Deputy Johns has been kidnapped and decapitated, and he calls a couple days later like, I'm fine.
I'm sure that was so jarring, especially, like, if he had a family and they, like, are just like, yeah, we, like, pretty sure we found your husband's body, but we can't confirm because it's headless.
Yeah, like, we don't, like, it could be like, your husband, and she's just like, ah, shit. Yeah, I don't know if he had a family. I really only checked up on the victim, so I just thought this one was kind of funny. We're just like, guys, like, fine. I'm fine.
That's wild.
Yeah. He did, however, state that the name of his abductor was a man named Ray Hamilton, and he was with 2 people, Bonnie and Clyde.
Wow.
And the New Mexico police were like, doesn't ring a bell. Don't know who those people are. Not a clue.
Not important.
Not important. I'm sure they looked it up later and they're like, ah, shit, it was the Barrel Gang. So, after this way about events, the gang decides, they're like, it's time to hit an armory. It's time to get us some weapons that can really pack a punch. And, well, there are a bunch of just these random armory stores just lying around that nobody's touching, so let's just go over there and grab one.
What do you mean no one's touching? Like, they're abandoned, or, like, just no one else is robbing them?
They don't have high security. They're basically the same as robbing a hardware store. But there are these armories essentially full of this high impact weaponry. And so the police are not allowed to use them.
Oh.
This is only for militia use. In case the town is trying to defend their stores, that's what these like little armories are for. They're not particularly well guarded. They're not particularly well they're just full of this weaponry, and they're just like, oh well, we're really good at robbing grocery stores and hardware stores now. Let's just go rob one of those. And lo and behold, they do.
And that went well?
It went well, yeah. They just rocked up and they were like, there's like one guy behind the counter going, you guys can't be here, and they're just like, shut up. Give us your guns.
Use the guns.
And he's like, well, all right.
And I imagine that's exactly what he sounded like.
Yes, 100% in his thick Texas accent. It's like, oh guys, you can't be here. Oh man.
Oh man.
Right. So now the Barrow Gang is armed to the teeth, and they're basically their poison of choice is the Browning automatic rifle, or the BAR for short. And these things are nasty. Like, they are better than anything the police have, by far.
Oh.
Like, they have outgunned most of Texas with these
Why
weapons.
are the police, like, so slack? They get bad cars, they get bad guns.
Because they're volunteers. These, like, it's not a police force. They're not, if there's no training system, they're not, like, state-sanctioned. It's basically just a bunch of, like, hick volunteers from these small towns with the promise that it's consistent pay and all you have to do is break up a fight or two.
Wow.
That's it. That's all you have to do. And they're like, sure. And then these outlaws show up and just destroy the place. And they're like, we're not prepared for this. We're not trained for this. So it's essential. And these armories that are like not really well maintained, because they're like, well, nobody's going to come and steal from an armory. And Bonnie and Clyde are like, why not?
Yeah.
I'm just going to do that.
Seems like the perfect place to steal.
Yeah. So they're outcarred, outgunned, and in some cases they're outmanned, because most of these people coming to investigate these like Bonnie and Clyde sightings, they're like, oh, I'm just an officer, I'm just here to see if something's up. And it's the gang is they panic, and then they flinch, and essentially the consequences just come from that quick second decision of just like, it's them or me. It's them or me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But not to worry though, because if you're not rooting for the Barrow Gang, their unlucky streak starts up again.
All right.
We're back into Bunny Hill territory. So sometime later in Missouri, the Barrow Gang attempt to rob a bank, as one does. And the teller behind the counter was just like, I don't know how I feel about these well-dressed individuals coming into my bank and not taking any money out. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And they deliberately actually sent Bonnie as the scout just to see what's up. So Bonnie's just sort of like wandering through this bank, like, and here's a bit of like, you know, old-timey history for you. A woman, like, the common courtesy was a woman doesn't go into a bank by herself. She's always on the arm of a man, even if it's her money. She's got to have a man with her. So Bonnie comes into this bank alone, and the teller's like, that's heckin' sus. She's well-dressed, she's not taking any money out, and there's no man with her.
Yeah.
This woman is unsupervised.
This woman is unsupervised and needs to be wrangled.
There's a rogue woman in my bank.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So when the gang comes back later to actually rob the bank, the teller is fucking ready. He's like, I knew it! I saw you guys! And he had a gun behind the counter and started firing at them.
Oh, God.
Also setting the alarm off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so despite the fact that not only were the Barrows Gang's guns better, and there were more of them than one teller, the teller had a bulletproof counter to hide behind, and fended them off.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, they made it out with $80. And the only reason they made it out with $80 is because it was left on the counter when the shooting started, and they just quickly swiped it and ran.
Wow.
And that was
at least we got something.
Like $80. Oh boy, that's $20 each. Yay.
Get a dinner.
Wow. Yeah. So pretty much then the group literally moved to the next town, and they were like, "Well, that bank robbery didn't go so well. Let's try it. Let's try that again with a different bank." pretty much the same thing, and the heist went without a hitch. Except the bank was empty.
There was no money in the bank?
There was no money in the bank because it had failed a couple of days before. It was one of the Great Depression failed banks.
They didn't do their homework.
And even the tellers were like, sorry, like, we're just literally here to clean the place. Whoops.
Yeah, no wonder it went off without a hitch. They're like, yeah, good luck, buddy.
Yeah, it was just like the janitor was like, what are these well-dressed individuals doing in this basically abandoned bank? That's really strange. And they're like, give us all your money. And he's like, I'm literally just cleaning the floor. Like, I don't know what you want for big. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Fucking gay.
Yeah. So it's at this time now where Ray Hamilton is officially caught. Okay. Yeah. So it turns out he had also, not only was he a great bank robber, he also had a bit of a loose tongue. And he was bragging to what an accomplished bank robber he was to a girl at an ice skating rink.
That's where I go to pick up ladies.
Yeah, like I'm a casual bank robber. To blow off steam, I go to Michigan, I go to ice skating rinks, I go pick up girls on ice skates. And she's like, you're so funny. I'm just gonna be right back. I'm gonna go powder my nose. And she called the cops. Yeah.
Wow.
I like to, the way I like to imagine it is like he's like on the side of the ice, like he's chatting up this girl, and she's like, oh, you're so fun, and she just slides away, and she's immediately replaced by a cop, just like,
right.
How's it going? We heard you're an accomplished bank robber.
Oh my gosh. And him just like sitting there too thinking like, man, I just turned the pants off this lady. And like he's like waiting for her to come back, and all of a sudden like just gets a tap on the shoulder, turns around and puckers up and just gets slapped with some cuffs.
Pretty much. And if you believe some of the stories, he was still wearing ice skates when he was arrested.
I do believe some of the stories, yes. That's canon, yeah. 100%.
Yep, he was shipped back to Texas, and he was sentenced to 266 years in prison for theft.
266 years?
266 years in prison for theft.
Well, I guess at least it's not a lifetime sentence, right?
Yeah, he can't get out.
Yeah, 266 years. Easy peasy.
You'll probably find that 200 of those 260 years were for the 2 murders that they thought he had done, and the 66 were for theft. Not to worry, though, it's not the last we've seen of him. He's just going to take a quick cat nap. Yeah, but we haven't seen the last of all Ray Hamilton.
Gotcha.
So, on October 11th, 1932, Clyde and the boys allegedly holed up a storekeeper, Howard Hall, who was killed in the robbery. There was only $60 in his till.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna say this, though, this is allegedly. This crime was attributed to the Barrow Gang, and it did happen, but they were not anywhere near this robbery when it happened. They were not in Sherman, Texas, where this happened.
Interesting.
It was another case of mistaken identity, where it's like, oh, that well-dressed guy kind of looks like Clyde Barrow. It must be him.
Yeah.
He must have done this. They were not. They didn't do it, but it's a fourth murder that's attributed to the Barrow Gang, and it was never solved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Howard Hall. Because it was attributed to the Barrow Gang, they're like, case closed, but it was pretty much like the police didn't know who it was an unsolved case, and they're just like, well, we need to solve it somehow, so we'll just assign it to the local outlaws, because they can't do anything about it. They're already wanted for 2 murders.
Yeah. Who are they gonna believe? A bunch of murderers?
Pretty much. That was the mentality.
Yeah. That's
so
easy shut case.
It really was. It was open, shut, done so. So, on Christmas Eve, 1932, the Barrow Gang acquired its newest and youngest member.
Oh, no.
Yeah. William Daniel Jones, or WD for short. He was born in May 12th, 1916. He had been really close to the Barrow family for years, and he was visiting frequently. He was actually Buck Barrow's new accomplice for a little bit, swapping out license plates, It's like all the cool kids are hanging out there, they're swapping license plates and stealing chickens. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So he was kind of like the new kid at the block, where it's like, cool, crime's fun, and I get to have chicken. He was also a fan of Bonnie and Clyde. He was like, I'm hearing about these desperados that are robbing banks and, getting away, and they're really cool, and they're doing the murders, and they're doing the pew-pew shoot-shoots. Like, wow. I really like those guys. And he knew the families. He knew the Barrow family, so he was just like, it's kind of cool. I wonder if we'll ever see Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Well, on that Christmas Eve, Bonnie and Clyde stopped by for a family visit, and WD was there. And he was like, oh, shit. Oh, it's you two. You guys are really cool. I'm literally like your biggest fan. And so, at this point, it's just Bonnie and Clyde. They've lost Fultz, they've lost Ray, they don't have any of the temps that they usually use with them. And they're looking at this kid, and they're just like, You are a child.
But you got any plans, kid?
But you got moxie. I like that. So, yeah, you can join our gang if you want to. You can be a member of the Barrow Gang. And he's like, oh, shit, that's so cool. And they're like, how old are you, kid? And he's like, 16.
Oh, my God. Are you fucking serious?
He's a baby boy.
Oh, Jesus. I don't like that.
And so Bonnie and Clyde are like, 16's a bit young, gonna be honest with you. But yeah, you can join. Yeah, come on. But first, we gots to test you. You gotta prove that you can run with the Barrow Gang.
Yeah.
So the three of them hopped into the car and drove off to Dallas that night. So, next day, Christmas, 1932, the three attempted to steal a car. So WD was like, I'm gonna show these two really cool bank robbers, like, what I got. I'm gonna help them hotwire a car. Easy peasy. So, he attempted to get it started while the other two kind of watched, like, from a little distance, just so they could see what was going on. All that good thing.
Yeah. Try not to cause, like, too much attention to.
Yeah, they're just paying attention. They're just being, like, a couple in Dallas, like, whatever. And the key was still in the ignition of the car, so it really should have just been a bam, bam. Like, in, out. Car, however, failed to start. And Clyde was like, that's not good. So he came over to help his latest gang member start this car. So she's like, and he's kind of like, come on, like, it's not that, like, it's the keys in the ignition. Like, what's your problem? Like, why can't you do this? Well, the owner of the car, a man named Doyle Johnson, can hear people fighting next to his car, and he catches them trying to steal his car. And he's just like, that's mine. You can't have that. Don't. And he literally grabbed Clyde in an attempt to prevent the theft of his car. He, like, grabbed him by, like, the scruff. So Doyle eventually, like, he starts screaming at onlookers, like, you need to call the police, they're trying to steal my car, my beautiful Model T car, it's not even a Ford, it's just a piece of shit, but they're taking it. And basically, it's just a fucking mess.
Oh, gosh.
And in the scuffle, somehow, Clyde ends up shooting Doyle in the neck.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's not sure if it was deliberate, if it was an accident, if it was a misfire, but Doyle ended up shot in the neck.
Poor Doyle.
And the Barrow Gang took his car and sped away.
Wow.
Doyle Johnson died a day later in hospital.
Oh, I hate that.
He was 27 years old.
Oh.
And he left behind a wife and infant son.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's so sad. Yeah, we're officially off the Bonnie and Clyde bandwagon.
Yeah, this is the fifth murder, fourth attributed to the Barrow Gang.
Yeah, that's shit.
Yeah, it's awful. And they're just at this point, they're just getting started.
Yeah.
But silver lining, WD made it into the gang. He passed his initiation.
Barely, by the skin of his teeth.
Pretty much. So on January 6th, 2 weeks later, Bonnie and Clyde and WD accidentally wander into a police trap set for another criminal.
As one does.
As one does. So the criminal that the police were looking for at the time was a man named Odell Chambliss. And he was a known associate of someone called Lillian Hamilton, who happened to be Ray Hamilton's sister.
I was like, the last names, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So they were staking out the house of Lillian Hamilton. But Bonnie and Clyde wanted to visit Lillian Hamilton to be like, hey, should we get your brother out of prison? So they stopped by to be like, we're gonna like maybe do this prison break thing, maybe. Like, have you heard of it? It's kind of like, it's what the cool kids are doing.
It's all the rage.
Yeah. So they pull into the driveway, and like as they're getting out of the car, Clyde gets like this like weird feeling, and he's like, no, something ain't right about this. And literally, like, he just got this like he got this sixth sense. He's like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So inside of the house was a man named Deputy Sheriff Malcolm Davis, and he was just behind the front door when they pulled into the driveway. So Clyde is like, no, something's up, I don't like this, pulls out his shotgun and fires 2 shots inside the house.
Just like blindly?
I think at that point he was like, oh fuck, this is a sting. Like, the cops are here, and they're looking for me because I've got fucking 3 warrants for murder on my head.
Oh my God.
So Davis was hit by the second blast of the shotgun. So Clyde hopped back into the car as it peeled out of the driveway, but Bonnie's just like, get in the car, we gotta go.
Yeah.
They sped away and they escaped, and Davis was dead before he reached the hospital.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So that's now the 6th murder that they've done, 5th that that's attributed to the Barrow Gang.
Unreal.
Yeah. So, if you remember, the gang is 3 people. There's only 3 of them. And Clyde's favorite buddies, his prison buddies, they're back in prison. They're both back in the ham. And Clyde kind of needs a gang. He's got plans, he's got ambitions, he's got things he wants to do, but he doesn't have the manpower. He has his beautiful love of his life, and he has a kid.
Yeah, that's not much of a gang.
Yeah, it's like we're basically mom, dad, and baby at this point. Like,
yeah, literally.
We're playing house, we're not robbing banks. Well, on March 22nd, 1933, that changed. Because Clyde's older brother Buck, remember him? The one that, got shot in the legs and got...
I didn't know he was still around.
He's still around, baby. Well, he just got out of prison. He's out of the ham. And he was like, I gotta find Clyde.
Oh, gosh.
And that's where we're ending part 1.
Oh, my gosh. All right.
That's it. That's our part
God.
1.
Holy shit. Wow. That was really good.
Yeah. It's a lot of information. So it might take some time for that to soak in.
Yeah, absolutely. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that is officially part 1 of our Bonnie and Clyde miniseries. And it's only gonna start getting worse.
I need to know. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's like you said. The boys are back in town. They're reunited, and they're kind of starting to actually get good at what they're doing in the worst way possible. The fact that he was even able to kind of like just sniff out this like sting operation so quickly is kind of scary.
And it's something that comes up with Clyde later is that he is often attributed to having this second sense, like the sixth sense, where he can just sort of sense that something's not going right, and it gets him out of trouble more times than he can count. Like their like reign of like terror, theft, whatever you want to call it, their stints as outlaws could have been ended very, very shortly if Clyde didn't have that feeling of, I'm in trouble, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
wow.
But this is the beginning. This is how they met, how they started their early days, as people will call it. Now we're going to get into something called their bloody days.
Okay.
So that's part 2 is going to be our bloody days, and part 3 is going to be called the Trail's End.
The Trail's End.
Yeah, we'll get into it. There's a lot of information, a lot happens. So, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed part 1.
Heck yeah. I know I did, certainly. I appreciate you telling this amazing story. I know I am just on the edge of my seat waiting to hear what's going to happen next to this part 2. I can't wait to record it with you, ma'am.
Don't worry. Alana gets the unfortunate privilege if she gets to hear the next part right away.
Yeah.
But the next part will be out in a couple of days, just to give me a little time to edit it. But it'll be promptly. It will not have to wait until Monday to get part 2. It'll probably be out on Thursday. But yeah, we're not spinning the wheel today, so I guess we'll just
see you Thursday.
End it short, sweet. Let's see you Thursday.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, until next time,
stay spooky.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Call the band hall. Okay, they're abandoned the hole. They lost their guns. That's where we're at.
They lost their guns.
They lost their guns.
They did that whole thing for nothing.
The whole thing.
That was just a whole big thing for nothing.
They did a lot of stupid stuff, and then they lost their guns. And that's Bonnie and Clyde.
I really can't believe that. Oh my god.